Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Neon Souls Season 2. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and Happy New Year! We're the first game on this channel of the new year, and I can't think of a better way to start it. So we've got everyone back. We're going to be doing our Session 0 today. If you missed our finale of our first season 2 weeks ago, what are you doing? Go watch that. No, but you can join us for this. Spoiler alert, I guess. We'll be talking about some of the things that happened in our finale last time. So if you don't want to be spoiled, unfortunately, you should probably go get caught up first. But if you're going to stick around and join us, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and promote some of our other shows that we got going on the channel, because we've got a bunch for you to enjoy. Our next stream after this one will be tomorrow. That's Saturday at 7 o'clock Eastern time. We'll have our next Saturday Night's Apocalypse. We're playing D&D 5th edition. We're doing the Prince of the Apocalypse campaign, kinda. And we've got a lot of fun stuff going on. They just banished all of the aliens back to their own dimension, and now they're well, I think they're going to go deal with the zombie problem, but I need to message my players and confirm that. So yeah, there's Mothra and aliens and zombies and all sorts of fun stuff. So come join us there. Otherwise, our schedule next week, throughout the weekend, is going to be normal. I don't think we have any other changes in plan. Might do a few last hurrahs at some Ace Attorney this weekend before I have to go back to work, and maybe some other stuff. So come join us for that. Follow us on Twitter, Discord, get all the alerts on when we're going live. I'm gonna let these people introduce themselves and talk about what they've got going on, and then we're gonna get started here in a second. So kick it off first with GB.
Graybeard Stavern, and I've toned it down. All I've really got is my Sunday morning show, and Thursday nights. But I've been on vacation, so not much going on there. That's it. Oh, and tonight I'll be creating Klaxon in the Cypher system, and I'm going to be the new Rob for this, the Neon Souls. I'll be the awkward one from now on. So that's my job. That's it for me, GB.
And I'm Imaginatrix, also known as Morgan on the internet. You can find me anywhere doing cosplay stuff as Imaginatrix. And tonight I'm building Clarity in the Cypher system.
Hello, I'm next. I'm Savvy, that's Savvy Seaworth on the internets. You can find me here every time this channel is live, pretty much. Tonight, I'm building my character, Choke, in the Cypher system.
And I am Christina Sid. You can find me on the Twitters at Greek Sid. Next time up here is on Sunday for Slang 101. I have brought in a new character. Her name's Isabel. She's a hoot, and I'm enjoying her thoroughly. But tonight, you will see me building Impulse. She was the reporter in the Sprawl, and we'll see what the hell she is in Cypher. We'll see what happens.
And rounding out this group, I'm Val, at the Kraken's Crown on Twitter and Twitch, and I guess I'm running the Cypher system. So let's get started, guys. I'm gonna do so. Here's our agenda for today. We're not playing. So if you guys want to stick around and watch us build our characters and stuff, that's what we're gonna be doing today. We're going to talk about our agenda is to create a new characters in Cypher. We are going to, I should probably actually have up my agenda. We're going to talk about Cypher uses something called character arcs, which we're going to kind of build out what the campaign is going to look like for this next season. So we'll talk about that a little bit, decide on what our overall arc is going to be for the campaign and what your individual character arcs are going to be. We're going to talk about what happened a little bit during the downtime. which took place in about a year after the last events of the game, and see what you guys have gotten up to in that time. And then we'll answer questions and talk about the system and anything else we can do in the time remaining. So what I want to do first, so of the 5 of us here, 2 of us actually played Cypher before. GB has a little bit of experience with Numenera, so we're kind of coming at this fresh. So I'm going to talk very briefly, give a very sort of basic rundown of the system, so that everybody can kind of understand what we're doing before we jump into just creating characters, so you can know like what's going to benefit you and kind of get an idea of how this all works. For those of you out there watching, if you hear about this system and you want to see more of it, we did do a short run here on GGK before of Cypher in the original Wonder World series, which is way back in the archives of our YouTube channel, probably one of the first streams that we had on our channel like 3 years ago. And ran for about 6 sessions. We were doing superheroes. It was a lot of fun. We butchered the rules, but you can kind of get a basic idea of what it's like. Cypher has some things in common with Powered by the Apocalypse. Also has some things in common with D&D, which I know a lot of us have as our kind of touchstone for the system we play the most. So I think it'll be pretty easy to learn, but it does have its own terminology and kind of its own way of working that's a bit different. So it's kind of a new language for all of us. So it's going to take some time to learn. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. It's probably the first couple of sessions are going to be a little awkward trying to get into it and try to know how to use your abilities, but I promise after a couple weeks it's a really easy system to learn. The cool thing, like Powered by the Apocalypse, I don't have to roll any dice. It's completely, all the action is driven by the players, like any Powered by the Apocalypse system. So you guys do all the rolling, you do all the heavy lifting, and I do everything else. So it's gonna be run kind of the same way that the Sprawl did. So how does this basically work? Essentially every roll that you do in this game is going to be d20 based. There are a couple of small examples where you guys might roll a d6 or something else, but by and large the only thing you'll be rolling is a d20. Every time that you try to do something in this system, you will be given I'll give you the difficulty of the check in the form of a task difficulty. That's the official term of the system. Those task difficulties go between 1 and 10. So whatever you want to do, from if there's a chance that you might fail, I'll give you a difficulty number. Those difficulties from 1 through 10 correspond to a target number you're trying to roll on your d20. The easy way to calculate that is whatever the task difficulty I give you times 3. That's what you got to roll. So if I tell you the difficulty is a 3, you're trying to roll a 9 or higher. If I give you the difficulty is a 10, you're trying to roll 30 or higher. Now you might look at that and say, but Val, I'm rolling a d20, how do I roll a 30? And I tell you, you can't. It's not possible. This isn't this isn't like D&D where you're going to be rolling like a d20 and adding plus 15 to it or something. The most you'll ever add to a roll is like 1 or 2. So other cool thing is very little math involved in this game. The way that kind of the bread and butter of the system and the way that it works is everything about your character and all of your like proficiencies and the things that you're good at is about lowering the difficulty of the checks that you're doing. So if you are, there's a couple of ways you can do that, which we'll get into when we're building our characters, but when you are better at something, you get to reduce the difficulty of it, which reduces the number. So for example, a lot of the things in the game will tell you like reduce the target difficulty by 1 step. So if I give you, say that the difficulty is a 3 and you have to roll a 9 to succeed, if you have something which reduces it by 1 step, you get to reduce that from a 3 to a 2. So instead you only have to roll a 6. If it increases the difficulty, then you have to roll a 4, which you'd have to roll a 12 or higher. So everything goes up and down in increments of 3. Does that all make sense so far? Okay. When you guys are making your characters, the main ways that you'll get to reduce difficulties are by either being trained in a skill, or you will be through something called effort, which we'll kind of get into a bit. It's a little bit more complicated, and we'll talk about once I get into like your skills and stuff. When I've made a couple of example characters that we can kind of follow along with as we make them. But the cool thing about Cypher is it has a very sort of loose and narrative way of building your characters. Unlike D&D, where you pick a class and pretty much everything you can do is tied to that class. So if you're playing a fighter, there's only like 3 different ways you can really play a fighter, or 5 or 6, depending on how many different archetypes or subclasses they've added at this point. But if you follow that subclass, you're only going to play a fighter that one way, really, because those are your abilities. And you can deviate a little bit depending on what race you're playing and what feats you take, or if you multi-class, but within the class itself, you're really limited in what you can do. Cypher is cool because it's freeform. You kind of have like a smorgasbord in front of you, a platter of different things you can pick from, and you guys are just going to pick and choose whatever you want when you're making your characters. It's really open-ended, freeform, which means there's a lot of options, a lot of possibilities, which means you can be kind of overwhelmed as a new player coming into this if you're not familiar with it. I'm going to do my best to kind of help direct you guys into some of the things that you can pick, because luckily, you guys are all coming into this with like really clear character concepts, because you already have played your characters for several months. So the 2 characters that I've made for this already, I've made Ghost, who we met at the end of the last season, Clary's sister. I've also made Swin, because LB told me she didn't want to make a Cypher character, and if she was going to guest, it was the only way I was going to get her on here. So I made Swin for her, with her blessing, obviously. So we'll use those as examples kind of going forward. Trying to think if there's anything else that I should cover now. Let's kind of get into it a little bit so we can get you guys kind of looking at things and stuff while I'm talking. So does everybody have the PDF up? Yes? Awesome. So where we're going to start first, and those of you at home that want to make your Cypher characters, follow along by opening up your Cypher PDF. You can go buy it or something. So if you bring it up, it's in chapter 3. Or wait, am I in the wrong? Hold on, let me make sure. I'll just give you a page number. It's a big old book, unfortunately. But page 14, sorry, is where we get started on character creation. And I think types start on page 20. Okay, so probably just go to page 20 then. So what we're going to pick first to get started with your character is you're going to pick a character type. This is kind of your classic like archetype. So if you're thinking about it in kind of a D&D sense, or kind of a general playing game sense, fighter, mage, rogue, bard, those are kind of the types you're going for. The 4 types in this game are warrior, adept, explorer, and speaker. And that's kind of the base spine, very basic backbone. It only uses those words as generalizations. In fact, what you will do is none of you will actually call your character a warrior, an adept, an explorer, or a speaker, because none of you, that those words don't make sense for your characters. It gives recommendations, like for warrior, it says in a science fiction setting, it recommends security officer, trooper, soldier, merc, something like that. For a speaker in a science fiction setting, which science fiction is loosely what we're using here for cyberpunk, is a diplomat, an empath, a glam, consul, a legate. So you guys get to pretty much call them whatever you want. You can stick with the terminology you wanted to use or that you were using in the sprawl. So you guys could still be the driver, the hacker, the no, wait, what did you end up with? I was going to say reporter.
Sure.
The pusher, and the killer. You could still be those things. But if you want to deviate and pick a new word, pick something that you feel like really fits your character, you can. So we're going to pick those first.
Volta leader?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking, so my thoughts were, for some of you, I think some of these really fit. Choke, I think, is probably clearly a warrior. Is going to go into or start with that type. Impulse, I think, is pretty clearly a speaker. I'd say Klaxon probably follows in the explorer side of things. The person that I was kind of in between on how we're going to go is really Clarity, because hacker can be defined in so many different ways depending on how you want to view it. The one archetype, the one type that we haven't really talked about is the adept, who's all about like psychic powers and kind of magic. Honestly, I think we could go with adept, or we could go with speaker or something like that. For those would be the two really like close options for Clarity. Obviously, if we went the adept route, we're going to be flavoring the sort of magic or mind powers as more like technology interfacing and interference, and that we'd be doing kind of a reskinning of it. But we could go other directions. Do you have any thoughts on the way you want to go with that?
I think flavoring the adept that way would be fun.
Yeah, I'm down for that. So one thing, we're going with kind of a hard science fiction is kind of the way I want to flavor this. So even though we're getting into a system that allows for it, we're not doing magic or mind control or psionics or everything. Everything we do has a basis in science still. I don't know how that science works, but it's all going to be science. So I'm willing to say like hand wavy, sci-fi stuff. But yeah, that's what I'll go. We can go that way with it. So I'm cool with it. There's an additional aspect on top of this that I'll go ahead and throw at you guys that we'll also get to add from once we get here, which is called flavors. There are specific flavors that you can pull from to kind of massage these types a little bit to make them really fit what you want. One of the flavors is a technology flavor, which I can already, knowing what some of these abilities are, and we'll get to those in a second, are probably going to speak to a couple of you as ways to sort of make you guys seem more like a hacker or a driver who uses like robots and things like that. Especially for the two of you, it's something that I'm going to point to here in a little bit. So let's start with the first things first, though, not to get too ahead of ourselves. You should find where your type starts in the book. So once you have that, which does anybody not have that? I guess I should say. They find where their type is located. You're all good? Okay. So when it'll give you a little bit of like background information, give you some names, kind of what your role in the group is, what your role in society is. You can read through that. You can ignore it. It's fine. There's this section called intrusions, where it's going to say warrior player intrusions, adept player intrusions. You guys all see those? For I don't think I saw GB. Yours are on page 27.
Speakers on 31.
I'm there. I'll find him.
You got it's top right hand. It's on the the right side.
All right.
Yeah.
It's the new column heading. Gotcha.
Yeah. So you'll have 3 intrusions there. Take note of those, copy and paste them, put them on your sheet. We'll talk about intrusions here in a second. You just need them on your sheet. Just put them someplace for now. But you have all 3 of those.
There's a section for intrusions on the sheet.
Nice.
I added that earlier because I figured you guys might want that. So there's a section for intrusions on your sheet, in roll. So you can just copy and paste those in there. Like I said, we'll talk about those in a second. It's an aspect of the game, but it's not something you guys have to pick because it just comes default with your class. But we'll go over those in a second, or in a little while. So I'll give you guys a second to copy and paste those.
Got him.
Got them.
Clear.
While we're doing this, I'll say if it's helpful, I had a lot of time to mess around with these sheets because I made them, but those little dots on the far left-hand side on your sheet on roll are essentially like a little table of contents. So if you run over them, there's like a line of dots.
On the
they'll
left.
take you,
Nice.
yeah, and they'll jump you to different sections if that's helpful for anybody.
Awesome.
Yeah, I didn't mention that before, and I probably should. Big thank you to Savannah for putting these character sheets together because she did that a couple weeks ago and has made this a lot easier.
And if we haven't
it's
said, we're
very
using roll for this.
we are using
instead of
roll.
Roll20.
Yeah,
If you guys wanna check it
trying
out,
this out.
go to playroll.com. It's really rad.
It's pretty dope.
Making custom
Roll
character
thingy.
sheets is really fun on this website.
Yeah.
I made a whole Cypher sheet in like under an hour.
So once you have your intrusions written down, you'll next see a section that says warrior adept stat pools. Maybe see those. There should be like a little table essentially. GB yours is unfortunately Explorer one got kind of bisected. It's page 28 at the bottom. Right above first here, Explorer.
Stat pools.
Yeah. So there should be a little thing. All of yours are different. It'll say like might 10, speed 10, intellect 8, depending on what class you are. Go ahead and on roll, you can put those numbers into the stats sections. So you'll see a section that says might, speed, and intellect. And then there will be a section that says like might pool, speed pool, intellect pool. You can change your max to whatever number is on the PDF there. Essentially, the way the game works is instead of having a stat per se, you guys all have pools. So one of these 3 is attributes. Might is kind of a measure of your character's physical endurance and abilities, their strength, that's their constitution. Speed is their dexterity, their agility, and intellect is their mental capabilities. The pools are resources as much as they are measures of your ability. So when you do things in the game, you will spend points from your pools to use abilities. So some of your abilities might cost cost intellect points to use, specifically if you're like a speaker or an adept, you'll be pulling from those. If you're someone like Choke and you're using physical stuff, you're going to be spending a lot more from your might pool. And it's just a measure of what you will be. It's your resource that you will spend to do things. It is also a measure of your health. So whenever you take damage, you will be taking off points from those pools as well. Starting with your might pool, then going to your speed pool, and then your intellect pool. So if I hit you with something in the game. If I don't specify that it is a certain type of damage, because sometimes I will say you take 5 intellect damage because whatever it is fries your brain or something, or speed damage, but that's pretty rare. For the most part, I'll say you get shot by a laser and you take 4 damage, and you'll mark off 4 ticks from your might pool.
A
Once that
robot
pool
eats
hits-
your arm.
Yeah. Take off from your might pool. She's still angry about that.
It's the second time
once
you've
you-
chopped off one of my character's arms.
I'll probably do it again.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It's becoming a theme.
Yeah. First time, actually, I think both times I gave you the choice whether you would lose your arm or not, and every time you've taken it though.
Yeah. I guess in your defense, the first time it did come back.
Yeah.
I had to get
Like,
all
almost
my character's tattoos redone.
Yep.
It was traumatizing. Never gotten over it.
So
It
when
was like
you
3 or 4 years ago.
So the way the game works though is that so once you have depleted all your points from your might pool, you'll then begin to take off points from your speed pool, and then you'll take off points from your intellect pool. Once all pools hit 0, you're dead. There's an additional system that we'll get into with damage, with like once your might pool hits 0, you become impaired. Once your next pool hits 0, your speed pool hits 0, you become debilitated, and then once the third one hits 0, you're dead. And there's some penalties that go along with those conditions as well. We'll get to those when the time comes. Suffice it to say, it's not a bad idea to kind of distribute and kind of make sure your pools are equally distributed, because you guys are going to get to add some points to those. But it does help you to have more points in the pools that you are going to be using the most. So once you have those points in there, I think everyone gets 6 additional points that they can allocate to the pools however they want. You're free to do those however you want to. You can do 2, 2, and 2, or you can put all of them in the stat you want to be best at. That is totally up to you. Anyone have any questions about any of that so far? Cool. So once you do that, then we're going to put a couple of other things on your sheet. First, there should be a section on everybody's sheet where it says effort. I think it's near the top. Everybody's effort is 1. We'll talk more about that in a little while. Next, you'll have a section called physical nature, where you'll have a section where it talks about your edge. I don't know if that says the same thing for everybody. Let's see. No, yours all says the section under effort. I think it says something different for everybody's sections. But you get to assign, or some of you it's just default. I think the only person who gets to choose is the warrior. Which ability you have edge in.
Yeah, you could choose either might or speed, I think.
Okay. So I think for the adept, your edge is going to be, you'll have 1 edge in intellect. For explorer, you'll have 1 edge in might. And then for the speaker, you'll have 1 in intellect as well. What edge is anytime you are spending points from the pool from that pool, you get to subtract what your edge is in that stat. So if your edge if you have 1 edge in intellect and you're spending 3 points from your intellect pool, except when you're taking damage. If you're spending 3 points in your intellect pool, you get to always subtract 1 from that, so you're only spending 2 instead. If you have an ability that requires you to use 1 intellect point and you have 1 in your edge, then you get to use that ability for free. Okay. It's a pretty easy thing, and it should be right there next to your stat when you're using it to help keep track of it. It just makes it so you don't have to exert yourself as much to do things related to that stat you are good at. Let's see. Next should be a section about ciphers, about how many you can bear at a time. There's a section on your sheet where you can put down how many you can hold. I think everybody's default is 2. I don't remember if speakers or adepts get more. But you just mark that down in I think it's near the bottom of the sheet on roll, and you can just note that. Ciphers are essentially powers or items in this game. They're one use, and they're things I'll give out to you as the game goes, and I'm going to give you guys some free ones to start out with. And there are things that you can do, one hit kind of abilities, essentially. And there's like a bunch of them. They do a bunch of different things. It adds a little bit more flavor to the game, gives you guys additional ways to kind of circumvent obstacles and stuff. It's the name of the system, obviously, so they play a big role here. But you can only hold on to so many at a time. So your cipher limit, if it's 2, means you can only hold on to 2 ciphers. If you get a new one, you have to give up one of your others. We'll get some more examples in.
Like inspiration. Use it, people.
Yeah, essentially. It's good to use it. It's good to hold on to it for when you need it. But it's also good to use it because you don't want to be giving up them later on. You should have a section next on weapons. And it'll say what you're practiced in, what you're proficient at, like your ability to use whatever kind of weapons. I know for warriors, you basically get to use everything. So we'll talk about a little bit about terminology here for a second. So if it says you are practiced in something, that essentially means you can use it without penalty. That is the base level of proficiency in using something. If you are trained in an item, trained in a skill or a weapon or anything, that means you get to reduce the difficulty of any sort of attacks or any sort of a skill that you're using that you're trained in. That is the ultimate level of proficiency in something. So if you're trained in stealth and you're trying to sneak past a guard, and I tell you the difficulty is a 3, you get to automatically reduce the difficulty to a 2 if you're using one of your skills to get past that guard. And that could be stealth, that could be, impulse using deception to try to trick the guard to letting her past. But training is something that's important because it'll let you accomplish things easier. So mark those down somewhere. You can put that in your skills section or your special abilities. But that'll be important to know what weapons you are able to use. Otherwise, you are considered hindered in them, and any tasks you try to do are more difficult if you're trying to use something that you don't know how to use. You have a section on starting equipment. Just write that down somewhere, or we'll come back to it later once we start giving out equipment. But everybody starts with a different amount of equipment, weapons, things like that. You might just want to put that in a notepad somewhere or something, or you can mark it on your sheet. But we'll come back to picking equipment once you guys have done more of your characters. So here's where we get more of your customization with picking your abilities. Everybody starts with 4, I think. And you get to pick from a list. All of you immediately under the special abilities section will see a list of probably somewhere around 10 to 15 or 10 to 12 different abilities that you can pick from. You can, if you're in the PDF, you should be able to click on them to have them automatically take you to the section of the PDF that those are in, so you can go back and forth. Otherwise, there's a page number next to it, and you can go to that page and read what those say. So all of yours, since you guys all are doing different classes, have a different list of abilities to pick from. Some are will give you the ability to do something specific by spending a resource. Some will give you more proficiencies and or some more training in different items and things like that. So you get to pick 4. If you want to add a flavor to your character, so like for instance, with Clarity and Klaxon, we were talking about the technology flavor. That starts on page 35 in the PDF. And there's a list of first tier technology abilities. You can substitute any of the lists from the Adept or the Explorer with one of those if you want. There's like Data Jack, Hacker.
What was the page again?
35 for the technology flavors. There are a couple on there that I thought was drawing your attention to. One for Clarity, Hacker seemed especially appropriate that you might want to take. Data Jack and Machine Interface are also important ones. I thought Machine Interface might also be good for Klaxon with his abilities from the original Sprawl system. There's also like Tinker that lets you craft or modify existing items. So you guys can look over those and pick the 4 that you want. If anybody has questions or they're reading through those and you have specific questions about what these abilities mean or what the terms mean, throw them at me. Or if somebody just wants to talk through what they're looking at.
So just to clarify for me, if we're adding a flavor, then we can still pick 4 abilities just from both lists?
Yes, you can still pick 4. There is a rule, technically, that you're supposed to sacrifice something from your main list to get from the flavor list. So I think one of the ones on the Warrior's Bash, let's say you wanted to take, I don't know, you wanted to take the Hacker ability instead of Bash. I know it doesn't make sense for Choke, but...
Well, there's a combat flavor is what I was asking.
Okay, yeah. So if you go to the combat flavors and you're like, I'm interested in taking Danger Sense, and you would have to give up Bash, cross it off your list. You can never take it, but you get to take Danger Sense instead.
Okay.
I don't particularly care. That's just the rule. That I want to acknowledge that rule exists to say that I don't care.
To say that we're not going to do it.
To say we're not going to do it. I just want to acknowledge that I read the rule book. So yeah.
Cool.
There are a couple other rules we'll go through that later on. I'm going to tell you guys that I don't care about, but we'll get to those as we come. Actually, I can go ahead and tell you one in case it comes up. There's a rule in this game that if you are using armor, whether or not you are that you have to take from your speed pool in order to use it, because armor is considered to be like heavy and bulky and you're running around with it. No armor exists in this universe which is going to slow you down, because that's not the system we're going with. You guys aren't wearing metal, and you guys aren't wearing armor plating and stuff. The most armor most of you guys are going to have access to is a leather jacket. There's some like combat armor that might come into play, like bodysuits and stuff. Ghost, for example, got a bodysuit with her character building. That I am customizing this to say no corporation, no tech company is going to make a piece of armor that is going to hinder their occupants' use. These are all super lightweight composite armor. So I am essentially doing away with that rule that says that any speed checks that you have wearing armor are going to be hindered. So you might see that stuff come up, because normally if you were wearing any sort of armor that wasn't wearing any sort of armor, if you're doing a like a speed based roll, you have to essentially spend extra points in order to do it. So it just is more draining on you to be able to do it. But I am throwing that rule out the window. So don't worry about taking any abilities that might do that. So like I'll
real,
go oh,
real quick.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's amazing. You can click on those to jump to the description. Is there a way to jump back?
Just hit the back button.
No. Is there a back button?
If you've got the PDF open, like in your web browser, then you can just hit the back on the web browser and it'll take you right back to the same page.
Your other option is if you have like the thing where you can input the page number, it's just to remember what page number you're coming from and just type that at the top to go back to it. That's what I do. Yeah, unfortunately, I think I'm using Adobe, so I can't, Adobe Acrobat, so I can't just jump back, but
Sharp. Me too.
So does anybody else have any questions, or else I'm just going to talk about like what I did for Swin and Ghost
For now.
So if we take a flavor, we can take special abilities from that flavor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just double checking. So like if I'm take hacker, which I am,
Yes.
I can take hacking abilities as my special abilities.
Yeah, so yeah, the first tier technology abilities, you can take any of those in right now. You can't take anything that's in the second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth tier list. You can only take from the first tier list right now. You guys will gain access to that ones later on. So those 6 abilities, data jack, hacker, machine interface, you'll gain those later on, or you can take any of those now if you want. And you can continue to take those later. You aren't limited right now. So when you guys improve, you can take more abilities and stuff. So don't feel like that is like closing the door on being able to take those forever.
So can I just take 4 off of the flavor menu? Because the Explorer is pretty much Lara Croft. There's no, almost none of the things under there would apply to Klaxon.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're feeling that too, you could also look at something else if you don't feel like the Explorer works. But yeah, I mean, if there's more stuff on the flavor list at this first tier, you can take those instead. There's, I think the first tier abilities, I'm looking at the Explorer. Yeah, I mean, there's Find the Way, which is like a navigating thing, which could be important, could work for driving. Anything else?
Knowledge skills.
Yeah, I'll say like things like improved edge helps later on. Knowledge skills, practiced with weapons, things like that. But if the technology flavor abilities are speaking to you more, go and take those now, and you can always take more first tier Explorer later on.
Cool.
But yeah, I agree. I think some of the technology stuff probably makes more sense for Klaxon. Anyone else have any thoughts? I'm also, if you see abilities from more than one flavor that you like, I'll let you guys take stuff from more than one flavor. So if you see the technology and the like combat flavor, like the stealth flavor, and a couple of those make sense to you, you can do that too. I did that for Ghost because being like the cyber assassin, I took some from the stealth, some from the tech. Basically what I ended up with for Ghost, for an example, is I made her a cyber assassin, which was the warrior. And I did the stealth and technology. So I took for her, which none of this will ever come into play because I will never play her like this. I will make Ghost into like an NPC, which functioned differently. But just as an example, she got stealth skills, so training and disguise and stealth. She took data jack, which gave her computer access to if she jack into a system. She took hacker because she's a trained hacker, and no need for weapons, which I flavored as some of her internal augmentations and some of her cybernetics, being able to attack people unarmed, essentially. And a couple of those came from the stealth skills, came from the stealth flavor, and the data jack and hacker came from the tech flavor, and no need for weapons came from the the warrior.
So if we decided we could sacrifice all of our special abilities for something flavor-wise.
Essentially, yeah, if you
Okay.
want to. Because it really doesn't matter in the long run. I'd rather you guys build the characters that the way you want to play them than do it. And again, there's nothing in the rulebook saying that you can't do that. Just technically, you would be giving up 4 abilities from your type. But I'm not gonna worry about those. Does anyone have anything they're currently picking between, or has everybody picked a couple at this point?
There are just a lot.
There are a lot. But take your time. We're not in any sort of rush. This is probably the thing that's going to take us the longest to pick. But we're getting into more of the stuff you're gonna pick. And once you guys have picked a few, if you want to share anything interesting that you took.
I've picked all mine.
Okay, Sven, what you do?
I'm just cutting and pasting, and then I'll
Yeah.
cut back to 4 when I get an idea.
Oh, okay. That's fine too. If you guys want to build some over the next week and think about it, and you can't make decisions right now, that's okay. Savannah, what did you go with?
So I picked 1 from the combat flavor. Let me just put it on here. Combat. So from the combat flavor, I picked Danger Sense, which is you can pay a speed point to ease initiative.
Okay.
Your initiative roll, to make that task easier. And then I did improved edge, so I made my speed edge 1 instead of 0. So I have 1 in might and speed. I picked combat prowess to add an extra damage to 1 type of weapon attack. It's either melee or range, and I'm going to do melee.
Okay.
And physical skills, to put training in 2 physical skills that I'm not trained in. And I think I'm going to do climbing and running.
Okay. Cool.
So I just made myself good at running and punching. And being able
Sounds
to punch
right.
first.
Yeah. That sounds right.
I was gonna do, it's like fighting without weapons or trained without weapons or something, but I changed my mind at the last second.
Cool. And
Okay.
like I said, you can always take that.
No
later.
need for weapons. I think later on I'll probably take that one.
Yeah.
I think I have mine picked too.
Okay. What'd you go with?
Well, hacker.
Obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also took data jack. Let's see. I took scan
Okay.
because I thought that would work well with her
yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I took tech skills.
Tech skills. Okay. Cool. And there's a section for skills in the underneath where the pools and stuff are, where you can just put down, and everything has like that little example stuff. You can just put down whatever the name of the skill is, and then in brackets next to it, if you're trained in it, put trained, and that way you'll just have an easy reference of what you have skills in.
Do we start with some skills? Did I miss that part?
Only if you pick something that is giving you skills.
Okay, cool.
It's
Just
not like
making
D&D where
sure.
everybody gets like a couple and stuff. You
No,
get
no,
skills
just
if you
making
pick. Yeah.
making sure.
I now have running and climbing.
Yeah. And there's like an infinite list too. Like skills are like it's not like there are 12 of them for you to pick from. It's all sorts of things, and if you feel like you have a skill that would be applicable to something, you just tell me like, oh, I have geography. I think that's going to help me in this situation because we are running across this field and I would know to look for, fault lines or something here to avoid the danger of this like magma field or something like that. Or, whatever it might be. I guess that'd be more geology than geography, but you guys get what I'm saying.
Okay.
So anyway, but I would know where this is located. I know where these countries are. I know the history of it. It can be vague. Some of them are very vague. Some of them are very specific. But I do really like actually scan for this. So one of the things about the adept is, a lot of its mind powers, and the way that scan is written, you could flavor it like I have psychic powers and I can read people in this area, but it also works really well for the sci-fi setting of being like, I can sense, I've got either like, I can sense like thermal scanning, or I can sense technology in the area and see where it is, because we've already talked in the past about clarity essentially seeing everything as like code and stuff, and seeing tech.
I think I'm boring. I didn't take any flavors. I think just a couple of these special abilities just make sense.
The speaker did have a lot that I was like, it was very close. Peek behind the curtain for what I did for Swin, is I also picked the speaker for Swin, because I thought that made sense for a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
But I also did a tech flavor for her, and I was reading through some of those, and I was like, this stuff makes a lot of sense for
personal favorite, terrifying presence. You convince one intelligent target of level 3 or lower that you are its worst nightmare. The target must be within short range and be able to understand you for as long as you do nothing but speak. You may not even move. The target is paralyzed with fear, runs away, or takes some other action appropriate. It's like, she really can't. She's all bark, no bite, but she'll scare the shit out of you. So that seemed appropriate.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I like it.
Okay. Is everybody either have all of theirs picked, or is gonna wait till later to pick the rest?
So what I grabbed was Tinker, because that just totally made sense.
Yes.
Tech skills, because that had vehicle driving, repairing, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Stealth skills, because that has that whole disguise, deception, lock picking, and such.
Repair company specific.
Exactly. The plumber's here. And then I took machine interface, was the fourth one that I for 1 minute you gain an asset on task to discern the level, function, and activation of technology devices that you touch.
Yeah.
I'm reading that and I'm like, that sounds right. I thought about it as like connecting to the drones or whatever, but what is this exactly?
So there's some stuff for the drone specific later on that I think will come into play, but this actually works well too, because essentially you can immediately connect with the machine and know how it works, and that makes a lot of sense for Klaxon.
Cool.
I think so. Yeah, that's good. So let's move on a little bit and do our next part. So when you're filling out the stuff at the top, all of you guys should have everything in the Cypher system, or your whole character, boils down to one sentence that you can speak about your character, essentially. You guys have all picked your type at this point, which is the sentence, the format of it is blank is a blank who blanks. That's the way that when we have all your character stuff, it's going to be, it's going to come down. So in your type section at the top of the page, you guys can flavor your type however you want. Like I said, for Ghost, I did Cyber Assassin. For Swin, I did Fixer, because that's what her playbook was. If you guys want to stick with whatever your names were, your playbooks were before, you're welcome to do that. If you want to come up with something else, you can do that too. So what we're going to do now is the part that goes before is your descriptor, and it's the descriptor of your type. It's going to inform a little bit more of kind of who you are. Descriptors start on page... on page 38. And and there is a box on the top of page 39 that has all of them listed. And you can pick one from that list as sort of a descriptor of your character. There are all sorts. There's appealing, calm, clever, dishonorable, exiled, graceful. I'm just picking random ones here. Intelligent, mystical, perceptive, tough, weird. There's a whole list of them. I think there's like 30. No, there's definitely more than that. There's a bunch, but I'd recommend reading through that list and just looking for a couple that kind of stand out, and then you can scroll down and read exactly what you get for that. But this personality type that you have is going to give you a little bit more ability. It's going to give you some additional stuff. I'll give you a couple of examples. For Ghost, I picked Guarded. So Ghost is a guarded cyber assassin. Guarded gives her so you conceal your true nature behind a mask and are loath to let anyone see who you really are. Protecting yourself physically and emotionally is what you care about most, and you prefer to keep everyone else at a safe distance. So she has the following characteristics. She's suspicious, so she gained +2 to her intellect pool. She had a couple of additional skills, so she was trained in all intellect defense tasks. Intellect defense is if you're defending against some sort of intellect ability. You put that in the same way you would a skill. She also receives some training in discerning the truth, piercing disguises, and recognizing falsehoods and other deceptions. However, she also gains an inability, and a lot of these also give you some sort of inability too, some sort of character flaw. Her suspicious nature makes her unlikable. Any task involving deception or persuasion is hindered. So she is essentially everything. Anytime she's trying to persuade or deceive somebody, it's going to be one step higher because of that characteristic. And then there's a section that says initial link to starting adventures, and everybody can just ignore those because we all have already done 20 something sessions of this game, so I don't need you guys to describe how you know each other.
So how many of these do we pick?
You pick one.
Okay.
You get exactly one.
I picked mine already. If
whatever
that's
word
helpful.
Yeah, you think applies most to your character. What did you pick?
So I'm picking Hardy.
Hardy.
Yeah. So the description is great for this. I had this one in mind ahead of time. But it's your body was built to take abuse. Whether you're pounding down stiff drinks while holding up a bar in your favorite watering hole or trading blows with a thug in a back alley, you keep going, shrugging off hurts and injuries that might slow or incapacitate a lesser person. Neither hunger, nor thirst, nor cut flesh, nor broken bone can stop you. You press through the pain and continue. And then it goes on to describe, as fit and healthy as you are, signs of wear show in myriad scars crisscrossing your body, your thrice broken nose, cauliflower ears, or any other number of disfigurements you wear with pride.
I love that. I think that's perfect for sure.
So this one gets a few things.
Yeah.
Actually, so I get extra might pool, so I get +4. So my might's 18, so we know where we're starting. I have the time it takes to make recovery rolls.
Okay.
Minimum of 1 action.
That is something we'll get into when we actually get into the game, but you guys can recover when you recover points. Everybody gets like healing that they can do throughout the game, essentially like between short to long rests. Your first recovery roll is an action, so you can just do it at any point, like during combat or something else, and it gets incrementally longer from there. Like it's an action, 10 minutes, an hour, I think in like 8 hours, and like a day. So each time you use a recovery roll, it becomes harder to do your next recovery roll until you sleep.
So I essentially get to knock those down a tier every time.
Yeah, I like it.
Which is cool. There's some other stuff too, which is really cool. There's like trained in might defense, which means it's easier to defend with might. But then it makes you a little slower, so if you're I have to spend extra effort when applying effort to speed, and my initiative is hindered, which is offset by my danger sense skill.
I was gonna say you took
I
danger
did it on
sense,
purpose.
so you have now just
So I've
countered those things.
regular, but the one that I like the most is almost unstoppable. While you're impaired on the damage track, you function as hail, and while you're debilitated, you function as impaired. So I don't suffer the effects of being impaired until I become debilitated, and then I will never suffer the consequences of being debilitated, but I still die if I hit 0.
So essentially, you can lose all of your points from your might pool and your speed pool before you start to suffer.
And then I'll be impaired.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's pretty
wild.
Intense. Awesome.
But I'm slow.
Yeah.
I'm
Cool.
Trying to
I like that.
offset with some other abilities.
We'll probably have to decide. So you had the synthetic nerves at the end of the last game.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining at some point those stopped working.
Yeah.
And that would explain why you've slowed down a bit.
Down.
Yeah, I like that. Which makes sense. Over the last year, you didn't have enough time to upkeep them, and you probably had to focus on getting your arm back.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Awesome. Anybody else have a descriptor that they're thinking of?
I'm kind of looking at calm.
Okay.
Yeah, you're well versed in all manner of academia or other intellectual pursuits, but nothing physical. You're not weak or feeble necessarily, although it is a good descriptor for characters who are elderly. but you have no experience in more physical activities because robots do it better than I do. You gain the following: you get bookish, so +2 to intellect. Skills: you're trained in 4 non-physical skills. Trivia was the part I liked. You can come up with a random fact pertinent to the current situation when you wish it. This is always matter of fact, not conjecture or
Supposition.
Thank you. And must be something you could have logically read or seen in the past. You could do this one time.
Are you about to let GB mechanically give himself the ability to just make shit up?
To go on tangents? Yes.
It's like, no, it's in the rules now.
It's right here. It's written down.
Right here. It says I can add giant mutated land-walking shrimp into the game if I would have read about it.
That's why I totally was
no.
This is way
good.
Oh no.
I do like that.
That's so perfect.
The inability, you're just not a fighter. All physical attacks are hindered, which he never fights himself. It's always the robots doing the shooting. And you're not the outdoorsy type. Climbing, running, jumping, swimming tasks are all hindered. You know, that just plays into the whole choke. Come on, let's go lift weights.
Yeah.
Do I have to?
Wonderful. And again with like the hindered stuff, so you'll have to mark that down somewhere, and you don't have to like put every single physical skill you can think of and put hindered. You can just say all physical skills hindered and just mark that on your sheet, so you know it. And then later on, if you were to pick up a skill, you could essentially offset that the same way that Savannah did with some of her stuff. If you decided like, okay, Klaxon starts working out because this is starting to be really hard to deal with, you could offset it, gain training in that, and that would make your hindrance go away, and you would just be proficient in it, basically. Cool. I saw, Morgan, you were raising your hand for a descriptor.
Yes. I was going to go with intelligent.
Perfect.
Yeah, it says you're quite smart, your memory is sharp, and you easily grasp concepts that others might struggle with. This aptitude doesn't necessarily mean that you have had years of formal education, but you have learned a great deal in your life, primarily because you pick up things quickly and retain so much. I get +2 to my intellect pool. I'm trained in an area of knowledge of my choice, and then I'm trained in all actions that involve remembering or memorizing things you experience directly. For example, instead of being good at recalling details of geography that you read about in a book, you can remember a path through a set of tunnels that you've explored before.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I like it.
Yeah.
So it's just really good, like really good sense memory.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then for like the trained in an area of knowledge of your choice, let me make sure you essentially get to just make those up.
Cool.
And I think GB had the same thing where it's like, you know, you're trained in 4 different. You guys can essentially think about the setting. You know, it could be like cybernetics, it could be technology, it could be, you know, you get to make up however what sort of skill you think is appropriate. But yeah, it'd probably be good if it fit the sci-fi cyberpunk nature world. You're looking like you're struggling over there, Sid.
All the ones that seemed the most obvious then have like some sort of drawback or skill that does not make sense.
Okay.
Like I'm looking at Charming, but she's, I don't know. Like then she's like not good at studying or retaining facts, so that doesn't make sense. And then like clever, but that didn't make sense. Creative, that didn't make sense. I think appealing is the closest that we're gonna get.
Yeah. Let's see. Appealing.
Right thing to say. Yeah. +2 to intellect pool. Trained in whatever pleasant social interactions means. And then what made the most sense was you're aware of how others can manipulate and charm people, and you notice when these tactics are being used on you. Because of this awareness, you're trained in resisting any kind of persuasion or seduction if you wish it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works. You know, I think there are other things too if you wanted to go a little bit, because like I said, I think that one is like the one that I would sort of immediately go with. There's also like I mean, empathetic I don't think would be or empathic.
Yeah, I looked at that one too.
Yeah, I don't think would be out there. We can also customize descriptors. So if, let's see. So there's a section for customizing descriptors. Under the normal rules, each descriptor is based on the modification of the following guidelines. Some descriptors offer a +4 and 2 narrow skills. Other offers a +2 and 3 narrow skills, or 1 narrow skill and a broad skill. If you like one of them a lot and the inability is what is hanging you up, you could find another inability from another descriptor and sub that in if you think so. You know, obviously that is like equivalent if you can think of one. If that is the thing hanging you, if that's the thing holding you back from picking something you really want to take. But appealing also works too if you want to go that way.
I don't know.
Or you can not take or you can just get rid of the inability and lose one of the skills as well to balance it out. So, for instance, if you wanted to lose I think the retaining facts was the one that you were.
Yeah, because I mean, she's just a fucking plethora of useless information, so that didn't seem to make sense.
If you wanted to lose the inability, if you wanted to get rid of that inability, you could also get rid of the you're trained in all tasks involving positive or pleasant social interactions. And I think that would balance out.
Okay. So at that, or which one were you thinking of for that? For charming, or?
That's charming, yeah.
Okay.
So if you wanted to go with charming, you could lose the studying retaining facts. You could drop that inability and also drop one of the 2 skill.
Yeah, pleasant social interactions makes the most sense.
Okay. Yeah, you can go with that. And then just take everything else there.
Yeah.
All right, I love calm, but I think mechanical's probably better.
Oh yeah, I think that actually it's probably going to make more sense too.
Yeah.
Special talent with machines of all kinds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that. So you gain plus to your intellect pool, trained in all actions involving identifying, understanding machines. You're trained in all actions involving using, repairing, or crafting machines. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get some various machine tools. Cool.
Oh, trivia. I'll just role play you.
That's fine. I know you will anyway, so it's not like you're losing anything. Okay. Oh yeah.
Well, now I'm looking at creative and
Okay.
wondering if I should do that instead of
I
intelligence.
think creative is really, really good, actually, for her.
Yeah.
Like just making shit up on the fly, like that
Yeah.
seems really appropriate.
I think so too.
Okay.
And then the inability kind of plays into her personality too, because the inability is you're inventive but not charming. All tasks related to pleasant social interaction are hindered.
Okay, yeah. And pleasant social interaction is essentially persuading, charming, that sort of thing. You can threaten somebody all you want and be fine, but as soon as you start trying to turn on the charm, that's when you're going to have an issue. So yeah, I think that
I'm stuck between the two now.
yeah, I mean, I think it's good because you get original, you're always coming up with something new, you're trained in a task relating to creating a narrative, such as story, player, scenario, okay. Naturally inventive, trained in a specific creative skill, writing, computer coding, composing music, painting. So you could take computer coding as a skill. You love solving riddles, and you're trained in puzzle solving tasks. You're trained in any new tasks that involves figuring out something new, digging through a library, data bank. Creative, actually, that works really well.
That's really good.
Okay, I think I'll take that one instead.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And again, because a lot of this, like, you go for there are things that are like obvious, and there are also things that are like really tie into you guys having played these characters for so long and seeing the kind of stuff you get up to. I think initially, maybe in session 1 of the last game, Clarity might have picked Intelligent, but having had as much experience as we have with Clarity now, I do think Creative probably maybe defines her or describes her a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we at now? So the next one will be choosing your guys' focus. We're getting into about the halfway point. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and talk about focus and what it is and what you guys are picking. And then we'll take our break, and you guys can think about it on the break and stuff too if you want to. Save a little bit of time that way. So the last thing that you're going to do here in creating your character is choosing their focus. There are a lot of focus. So it starts on chapter 8, which starts on page 60. But what I actually want you guys to go to instead, because that page starts the list of all of the foci in the game. Since we're doing the sci-fi setting, there's a specific section later on in the book, I'll give you guys the page number for it, that gives a list of science fiction appropriate foci. I would suggest looking at those. You can branch out if you find something else. But the list of all of the foci in the game start on page 64. As well as you can pull up the tab and you can look at if you pull up the bookmarks section in your PDF, you can scroll through them faster that way and just read through all of them. But if you want to see the one that's specific to the sci-fi genre, that starts the science fiction chapter starts on page 270, and the pace that we are looking, the suggested foci is 272. So if you go to page 272, at the very top of the page, it says suggested foci for a science fiction game, and it gives a big list. I looked at a lot of these. There are some that I thought looked very appropriate for some of your characters. Works the system, I would suggest for if you want to look at Morgan for clarity, I read, and I was like, hey, that actually might work really well for her. Never says die, kind of sound like it worked for Choke. Talks with machines or pilot Starcraft works for Klaxon. I think either one of those. And honestly, Sid, there are just so many that I think would work for Impulse.
Is idolized by millions sort of struck my eye real quick.
Is idolized by millions also works. I would suggest looking at those. Those are the ones that I found. I was like, hey, those sound exactly like their characters. But you can look at others too if you want to. There's a whole list. There's a whole bunch. Some of them I'm probably going to veto. There are some that are like time travel. None of y'all can time travel.
I want to fly.
Man.
None of y'all can fly.
Can I fly?
Which was the one that...
Works the system. I know it sounds like a boring one, but I think that that's the one I read that I was like, actually, that sounds a lot like what a hacker would do. But there are some others. There's talks to machines too, which
that's
I also
the one that
think,
I was gonna say.
Yeah, talks to machines or
Talks to
works the
Machines.
system, I think would both work for clarity. I would suggest looking at both of those.
There is builds robots.
I did
And
see
builds-
that. Yeah.
Builds robots, pilots Starcraft, talks to machines. A lot of those work for a couple of you. Fuses flesh with steel is another one that potentially for Choke. That's the one I gave Ghost.
I looked at that one. I'm not sure about some of them.
That one is like, that one's if you went, I think that might not work for Choke because she has a couple of cybernetics, but she doesn't have a lot. That one I picked for Ghost because it has, this is the read for it. The main ability is your machine parts. She has an enhanced body. Your machine parts grant you a +1 to armor, +3 to your might pool, and +3 to your speed pool. But traditional healing skills, medicine, and techniques only work half as well. And essentially, it's harder for you to recover because you have to essentially repair yourself instead of doing it. But you are like hardier, more resilient than most people. Anyway,
No.
Oh, good.
I was just going to say the two on the list that just make me laugh are Murders and Loves the Void.
It straight up just says murders.
Murders. Yeah,
oh wow,
just
yes
Murders.
it does.
Yeah, Murders might also work for a Choke. As
There's
the killer.
also one that's just like doesn't do anything or something. Like it's really funny.
Yeah, you could be a hideous warrior that doesn't do anything.
I think it's that one.
In this game.
Oh, it doesn't do much.
Doesn't do much. Yeah.
Or drives
There's
like
a
a
lot
maniac.
of good ones. Yeah. It's another one that potentially could work for Klaxon. Anyway, you guys start looking at those because there's a lot of fun ones. And we'll talk about them when we come back. Let's go ahead and take our break right now. And we can refresh and we'll come back, pick our foci, finish making our characters, talk a little bit more about what's going on. So everybody hang out with us in the chat. We appreciate any of you that are hanging out because we know this isn't the most exciting stuff, but needs to be done. If you're enjoying it, we're glad you're enjoying it. And we'll see all of you guys in a couple minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us while we took our break. Change the music to something a little less. I realize I've been having this on and it's a little dramatic. Let's go something a little more upbeat. Okay. We're going to continue with our character creation. We're making Cypher characters to play our next season of Neon Souls. So we're finishing it up right now. Everyone's picking their focus. So we have a couple people that have picked some and a couple people that have questions. So Savannah, you had a question about a term?
Enabler.
Yes. So some of you will see at the end of an ability, it'll just say the word enabler. That means that it is a ability that is just active. You don't have to use, like, it is something you enable and it just happens. Let me get the actual, that's a terrible description. Let me just get the description.
Because a lot of mine just say enabler at the end. Like, I don't know what that means. And then I realized that some of them say action, so I probably could have
so if
figured
it says
that out,
enabler, if it says enabler, it shouldn't say, if I'm remembering right, if it says enabler, it shouldn't be an action.
Right.
It should just have enabler at the end. So it means you don't have to do an action to do it. It's just something that happens. So if you end up in a combat situation, it is like a passive skill, essentially.
Thank you.
Okay.
I am having trouble picking between two things.
Okay. What are you picking between?
Well, where'd you go? Is idolized by millions.
Okay.
Because again, my pusher, like if we were still doing sprawl, the next steps with that was like I had followers and like a little band of people, and that was kind of the next steps with that. So that kind of would allow me to continue with that, which sounded like fun. But there's also just leads, and that's got like natural charisma. So like just all social interactions, any social interaction would be like trained in, and it actually has 2 tier 1 things. It's also good advice, which also kind of harkens back to some things of just like can give a +1 asset to anytime they assist with something.
Yeah. Both of those are good. I guess it depends on where you see Impulse being at this point, because like we said, if a year has passed, I could see either one of those working. Is Idolized by Millions would be more like Impulse has stepped back into the spotlight. Even though you are kind of wanted right now, we'd probably flavor that as kind of like an underground movement that you are being idolized by, less of a
kind of don't want the corporations at our throats while we're on the moon. Yeah,
because you are essentially if we go with that one, I'm probably going to go with you are more like wanted right now. There might be more like people looking for Impulse currently, but yeah, I mean either one of those works. Leads kind of does the same thing.
It allows for some followers later on. That like basic follower. Where'd that go? You gain a level, but it's like small. It starts small. It's like you gain a level 2 follower. They have some modifications, so that's just more one person as opposed to like just a big old mass of people.
It's really kind of like how far you see yourself along in this process, because Idolized by Millions is kind of the end result of the leads process. So
yeah,
and it has been a year, so I'd say within reason you could be at either point of this. It's up to you where you want to start at.
I mean, you could be the rebel on the run. You know, the revolution could have begun or something. You know what I mean? And so you're, from a discrete location comes,
Yeah.
So I think we had a couple. So Morgan, you picked yours, and you decided to go with Works the System.
Yes.
Okay. So that gives you Hack the Impossible. And what was the other one?
Computer programming.
Computer programming. Yeah, I think both those would be pretty perfect. You'll also see that at the bottom of it, there's a GM intrusion thing. I'm going to take notes of all those later on. You guys don't have to. That's more from me. We're going to talk about intrusions here in a little bit, but I would. It just gives me a little bit more flavor of like complications I can throw at you, essentially. So I'll probably lean into some of those. For example, if it works the system, contacts sometimes have ulterior motives, devices have fail safes or even traps. So I will lean into when things go bad, having it be related to some of your hacker contacts or some of your tech malfunctioning, things like that. Savannah, did you pick yours?
Yes. So I picked Looks for Trouble.
Okay.
Which is you're a scrapper and you love a good fight. So there are 2 tier 1 abilities for this one. One of them is Fists of Fury, which is 2 additional points of damage with unarmed attacks.
Okay.
And then Wound Tender, which makes you you're trained in healing.
Okay.
So I'm gonna flavor that as kind of a like
field medic.
Yeah, like a combat medic type deal. Which is probably something Choke spent the last year learning how to do.
Yeah, after nearly dying a couple
Everything.
times. Yeah. Cool. GB, did you decide which one you want to go with?
Can't possibly not go with builds robots.
Okay.
I had to go with it.
Let me see.
Yeah,
Builds. Oh yeah, because you do get a robot assistant.
Yep.
Yeah. So robots that level 2 robot of your size or smaller, built by you, accompanies you and follows your instructions. You just want to go with that spider bot?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
The GM must work out the details of a robot. It's spider bot. We know them so well. We know what they can do. You'll probably make rolls for it when it takes actions. Row assistant in combat usually doesn't make separate attacks, but helps you with yours. On your action, if the artificial assistant is next to you, it serves as an asset for one attack you make on your turn. If the robot is destroyed, you can repair it with 2 days of tinkering. Cool. Yeah, that works. And then you get a robot builder.
Yep.
Trained attacks related to building and repairing robots for the purposes of repair. Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense because we already decided that you didn't bring Rosie or Chappie with you.
Yep.
Because they both got Batmaned. And yeah, so yeah, that's perfect.
Cool.
All right, impulse decision time.
That's
Ironically,
hard. I guess leads.
leads.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to sound like you hate it so much.
No, it's not that. It makes the most sense.
I think it does. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, and like I said, it can develop into something else, and I think you'll get to the same place.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down with either, and if you change your mind between now and next Friday, you're welcome to, because can equally see either one of those working. Okay. So you should all have your character sentence essentially fleshed out at this point. So you should all have at the top of your page an example like what I have for Ghost is Ghost is a guarded cyber assassin who fuses flesh and steel. For Swins, I have Swin is an inquisitive fixer who helps their friends. Does anyone have any questions about that? We're going to do equipment here.
So any of the stuff, like the tier 1 stuff, we should just add it, like whatever it says at this point. Okay.
For your focus, you should add it.
Okay.
So don't add any tier 1 abilities from your type, because those you'll pick up as you improve.
Cool.
I mean, other than the 4 that you picked, don't add all of them.
Got it.
But add the stuff from your descriptor and your focus.
Some of my stuff overlap. Let's see.
Okay. So you gain an ability that you already had, or you gain a skill you already had?
Well, like my skills. Let me go back up here. Like I have deceiving and persuading. I had used special abilities to influence the minds of others, but now I just have like all social interactions. So would I just add that like under my skills? Like I have deceiving, persuading, using special abilities and influence the minds of others, all social interactions.
I would still keep those separate.
Okay.
Because deceiving could be more than talking to people.
Okay.
And using your abilities to influence the minds of others doesn't necessarily mean a social interaction.
Okay.
So I could flavor those as being. I would keep those separate. There is, I will admit, there is overlap there, but I think there is some distinctions still that we have.
Should I put that from leads in the special abilities instead then?
If it is, you are trained in all social abilities.
You are trained in all social interactions, whether they involve charm, learning a person's secrets, or intimidating others.
I mean, you can put that in your skills, or you can put that under your special abilities. I would still, under your skills somewhere, just put all social interactions trained. So that way when you're looking at your skills, it'll clue you in, and you can go and double check what the full text of the thing says if you need to.
Okay.
Okay. While Sid is doing that, let's go ahead and do our equipment. So you guys all had an equipment section with your type, which talks about what equipment you start with. The equipment is not in the chapter labeled equipment. It is, however, in the chapter labeled science fiction. The equipment chapter talks about how equipment works, and kind of some generalizations of it. But when you're actually picking what kind of equipment you want, you have to actually go into the genre section to pick from that. So starting on page 272 at the bottom, you'll see it says additional science fiction equipment, and then it lists like inexpensive items, moderately priced items. It goes on to expensive items, very expensive items, and exorbitant items. Pricing in this game at its core is left ambiguous. I have a general pricing that I'm going to use for this game, using like how credits relate to being expensive, very expensive. Something like an inexpensive item will be like 100 credits. An expensive item is 10,000 credits. And then exorbitant items are like 100,000 credits. We're expanding on the cred system a little bit because it is a little more specific in this game. So all you guys should have a list from your type, which says how many of you get to start with, like one weapon or two weapons or something, one expensive item, 3 moderate items, 4 and up to 4 inexpensive items. Something along those lines. You can pick from this list. If you want something that's not on this list, you can also tell me what it is that you think you want, and I will tell you like what that falls under, because this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some examples of what kind of equipment is available.
Is it on again?
272 is what it says.
Okay.
If I wanted my cloaking device,
I figured that was going to come up. What do you get to start with? What are your options?
2 expensive items, 2 moderately priced items, and up to 4 inexpensive items.
Okay. I'm trying to see where... So there is a stealth suit, but that's under very expensive.
Ooh.
Here's what I will give you. Do I want to do it this way? I was gonna say you could say both of your expensive items equates to 1, because we could give up both your expensive items. You could have 1 very expensive item, but you also kept it the last time. Like, I don't want to take away stuff that you guys already had. Let me think about it.
Okay.
Okay, let me think about it.
For now, I'll just pick items.
Yeah, pick what you want. If I give it to you, I'm just gonna let you. I'm just gonna
Cool.
give it to you as an item. I want to see where everybody else falls and stuff too. Because does anybody else have anything that they had in the last game that they want to like carry over and have in this game that wasn't like explicitly destroyed in the last game?
I mean, I had disguise kits, which are apparently exorbitant items in this game, but
Yeah,
excuse me, a very expensive item.
very expensive item. Yeah, because that's more of like a. I would put that's more of like a technology sort of thing, like a cloaking or like a fielding sort of thing.
That makes sense.
Because when it says like it'll say next to disguise asset for disguise test, and that's why I'm agonizing over this for the stealth thing, because an asset will reduce the difficulty of those checks. So it's a powerful item because you get to essentially permanently reduce the difficulty of the appropriate check. In the case of the invisibility field or the stealth suit, it would be reducing. It'd be all stealth tasks you would get to reduce by 1 step. Which I'm weighing in my mind how much that could cause a problem. I'm leaning more towards just letting you have it, but I just wanted to see where everything else shakes out first.
For sure. So if we're only proficient in light weapons, that means we're not proficient in any of these armors?
Correct, unless you gained something that made you specifically proficient in an armor, then you're not technically considered proficient in it. I'm going to make the exception to leather jackets because you are all proficient in leather jackets.
They are on the list.
Everyone is proficient in a leather
I
jacket.
can't imagine a universe where one of you goes, I don't understand how this leather jacket works. It's ruining this for me. It doesn't make sense to me. So anyone can pick up a leather jacket if they want that as armor.
It's under moderately priced items.
Yes.
Sweet.
So
Which light armor gives you 1 armor. Which in this game reduces the damage you take by 1. Sorry. Savannah.
how do chain? There's no chain.
Yeah,
There's
no.
rope.
There's rope.
There is rope.
But I don't think
we
it's
can.
tagged as a weapon.
No, we can create a chain as a weapon. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna stress that too much. Do you want it to be a light, medium, or heavy weapon?
I can use all of them.
You can use all of them.
All
I
I
would-
want it to be is a melee weapon.
Yeah. I probably will put. I'd probably put a chain around a medium weapon.
Chat has redeemed a water break, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
chat.
I'd probably say medium weapon
So
on
that's
par
what I
with a
was gonna
machete.
say, because it said like in the description of how heavy the weapons are, the medium weapon is one that like is normally used two-handed but could be used one-handed,
Yeah,
stabs and stuff. So
yeah. Because a heavy weapon always requires 2 hands.
yeah,
Yeah, I would say a chain will be a moderate, or sorry, a medium weapon.
okay. I'm just gonna tag it with medium weapon and melee.
Yeah.
Then.
So in case you let me describe things a little bit better. All weapons fall into the category of light, medium, or heavy. Light does 2 damage. Heavy does 4 damage. Or sorry, medium does 4 damage. Heavy does 6 damage. No matter what the weapon is, that's the damage for it. The advantage of a light weapon is it's always easier to use. So any attack made with a light weapon, you get to reduce the difficulty by 1. So if you're using like a knife or some other light weapon, you always get to reduce the difficulty of the attack by 1. So there's an advantage there. You do less damage, but you are more consistent at actually hitting. So in that regard, you can essentially make up whatever you want, and I just have to figure out what category it probably falls under. The same thing for armor. They either fall under light, medium, or heavy. Heavy armor does not really exist in this world. The only thing that really have heavy armor are robots, because they're made of armor. Do you guys have any other like equipment stuff you have questions about?
I mean, if one of the skills or whatever we took, like the bag of tools and stuff, that if it gave it to me under one of those descriptors, then I don't have to take it here.
Yeah, so if it gave it to you somewhere else, you just put it on your sheet. You don't have to pay for it. You just have it.
And I would like to express that thermite grenades are under moderate items. So, just...
They do not list what type of weapon that is either. I would just like to throw that out there. No pun intended. It being a grenade.
So it's an explosive weapon. But yeah, it doesn't actually say if it's... I would assume it's light. As for the...
It's a moderate, you said?
So it's moderately priced, yeah.
Thought of charming is that I get an extra moderately priced item because I talked my way into a little bit of extra cash. So I might be just everyone needs a thermite grenade, just in case. Yeah, I see y'all.
Anchorman and Return of the Jedi come to mind. I'm just gonna say that.
I have another question.
Yes.
Are we tracking ammo? Because technically the energy packs are under inexpensive items. They give 50 shots for blasters, but...
Here's what I'm gonna say. If you have a blaster, you need ammo for it. You don't have to track how many shots you've used, but you do need ammo for it. There may be times where I might tell you you're out of ammo as like a thing, or like there may come like a narrative point where I may do that as like an intrusion or something and take away your ammo. But I'm not going to ask you to sit there and go, I have 49 shots left. I have 48 shots left. I have 47 shots left.
But I should use one of these and say I have an energy pack.
I would, yes. Yes. If you should use one of those and buy an energy pack for your gun, or two to have backup somewhere. Or
two, one for each gun. I'm getting a second gun.
Okay. Yeah, you probably need one for each gun. Yeah, I'm kind of track ammo in like the dungeon world way, where you only lose it if something bad happens. If you really screw up, you might lose your ammo and have to go get more. Because I hate that so much.
You could get a spaceship.
You could get a spaceship. There's lots of cool stuff on here. Expensive items, things that you guys can get. There's like risk computers and environment suits. And
I grabbed a risk computer.
Yeah. Yeah, I assumed that Clarity would probably get one.
We should probably, what are they called? Is that moderately? Does everyone want to grab a communicator? So we all have communicators. Ooh,
that's probably a good idea. Communicators have a planetary range, which means you can communicate with anyone on the planet that you're on. So with that, you guys are on a space station that orbits the moon. You can talk to anyone that's on the space station or on the moon. You can't talk to anyone on Earth with it, though.
Okay, I'll get a communicator then.
When something is labeled as an asset,
means it reduces the difficulty of that task by one step. So yeah, like binoculars give you an asset, climbing gear gives you an asset, first aid kit. I'm also... am I going to hate myself for doing this? So like first aid kit doesn't have uses. You can... it's not like you use it once and it goes away. I'm debating whether I do that for grenades too. Because you are buying them as a moderately priced item. So it doesn't make sense you bought one grenade for... What's the price that I'm putting on it? 1,000 cred.
So we just have access to
the
grenades.
World's best grenade.
Yeah, I think I'll probably function.
Got a deal.
I'll probably flavor it the same way I do other things, where it's like you have access to grenades that you can use as weapons. If bad things happen, you might lose your grenades and have to go get a new one. The same way with any weapon. You could also lose your gun if something bad happens. You could break or something. Yeah, I think I'll just do
question
that.
about range.
Yes.
So most of these say like immediate range, short range, long range. One of these guns just says 300 feet. What range is that considered? This 300 foot, 90 meter range.
I think that's slightly more than long range.
So that's like past long range.
Yeah, it's past long range.
Okay. Because there's like the blast cannon at the bottom. It's like 500 feet, 150 meters.
Yeah. Let me pull up
I was
the
just
range
curious.
thing.
Like,
Yeah,
because those are
hold on.
specified and basically nothing else is.
Rules of the game. Distance. So short distance is anything greater than immediate distance, but less than 50 feet. Long distance is greater than short distance, but less than 100 feet.
Okay.
Very long distance is less than 500 feet. So it is sort of between long and very long.
Cool.
All right. Everybody got their equipment then?
I grabbed a pair of binoculars. I feel like that could maybe be passed around as needed. I grabbed a communicator too. Does anyone want to grab a first aid kit?
Yeah, I was going to. So that's cool. Also, I'm flavoring my leather jacket as that tactical vest.
Okay. That's fair.
And I'm assuming that Impulse's leather jacket has very pointy shoulders. Is that allowed? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
You can look like whatever you want. Just have to wear it on your body. Okay. What do I do next? So you guys have basically made your characters. You have everything is filled out on your sheets, right? I haven't missed something that.
I think so.
So what I want to do is talk about arcs. And that is... Sorry, I'm pulling that up in my... Where the hell? Ah, here it is. Okay, so one of the things that is different about the system is the way we're going to do XP. So you can gain XP in Cypher in a few ways. Most of it's going to happen during the game, and it's going to be player driven. I'm going to take a step back and talk about a couple things too, so that will set the stage for this. The most common ways that you will get XP is by either accomplishing a step in your individual character arc, which we'll go over in a second, or through a GM intrusion. Intrusions are a really cool mechanic in Cypher. It's one of my favorite things. It's kind of like in Good Society, like doing like tokens, where I offer a token to cause something negative to happen to you. It essentially is me as a GM in some sort of moment saying, I want to take over the story and have this thing that's like detrimental thing happen to you right now. I'm going to give you 1 XP for that. And this bad thing will happen. I'll tell you what's going to happen. And I'll say, and I'll ask you if you want it. You can accept the intrusion. You get the XP. And then you get 1 XP that you get to give to somebody else at the table. So essentially 2 XP are given out every time I do an intrusion. You can justify any reason why you're giving that person the XP, or just because that person needs the XP more than someone else. You can decide to, if you want to be a buzzkill, you can reject the intrusion. I'm just kidding. You can do it for any reason if you want to, but you have to spend an XP to do that. So if you decide, I don't want that to happen, I want this to go off of that hitch. Let's say your Clarity's hacking something, and I decide there's some counter hacking software that is implemented, and it's gonna alert everyone to your location. I'm gonna give you, this is an intrusion, I'm gonna give you an XP for this, and you decide, I don't want it, I want this to go off without a hitch. You have to spend an XP, and you get to reject the intrusion. Otherwise, you have to take the XP, and the bad thing happens. I'll probably do the game recommends you limit those to about like 4 a session. So I'll be giving out probably about 8 XP a session that way. The interesting thing about XP in this game is you don't have to expend it just to level up. Like I said, you can spend it on rejecting intrusions like that. And there are a couple of other things you can spend it. I'll probably make a list somewhere so you guys can remember this. 1 XP you can spend at any time to re-roll a check. You can do it to refuse an intrusion, as I said. Or you can spend it to gain a new character arc. If something has happened in the story and you feel like this arc, you want a new arc to explore, you can spend an XP for that. You can also spend it as a player intrusion to cause something to happen, or to like gain a new Cypher or something like that. You can spend 2 XP at any point to gain a short-term benefit, like let's say you're climbing a wall or something, and you say, actually, I have some training with this. Like this thing happened in my past, and you come up with a description for like why you think like I actually have some training here that'll help. You spend 2 XP and you get a temporary skill that you can use for that check, and that persists in that very specific situation. So it's like a limited skill for a specific moment. 3 XP you can spend to make to gain a long-term benefit. This is where declaring a contact comes back in. You can spend 3 XP to declare a contact. So I'm sure you guys will be doing that a lot. You can also do it you spend 3 XP to gain a home or a property at some point to get like something within the city, some sort of real estate, or to gain a title or a job. And then 4 XP is what you will use to advance. The advancement system in this game is a little more like step-based. You spend 4 XP, and you have to do a couple of different things. There's a list in the book. When we get there, I think we'll start talking about it, but I don't want to bog it down right now. But essentially, the way the game works, you spend 4 XP, you take 1 thing off a list of 5 advancements. Once you have taken 4 of the 5 advancements, then you can spend 4, you can go up a tier. So 16 XP to go up a tier, essentially. But you want to hold on to XP because you can spend them during games to help yourself to avoid intrusions, to reroll dice, things of that nature. You can also spend XP to like gain money or wealth, and to kind of trade it in for those sort of benefits.
And that is the hell of these games. Do I save it? Do I spend it? Do I reroll? Yeah. Do I not?
The cool thing though is that like really advancing tiers doesn't make you more or less powerful than somebody else in the long run. If somebody is tier 2 and the rest of you are tier 1, it's not really going to unbalance the game if you guys progress at different rates. There may be some problems if we get to the point where somebody is tier 6 and somebody else is tier 1, but overall it shouldn't be an issue. So I want to talk about now that we've talked all about that, we're going to talk about arcs. All of you guys get to pick a character arc that for free at the beginning of the game that will be sort of your driving motivation through the game. I'm gonna throw these out there right now. You don't have to pick one right now because we're gonna talk about like what you guys have, we're gonna take the next week to kind of talk about and think about what you guys have done over this last year, because I don't think we're gonna have enough time today to really get too much into it. But there's a whole list that starts on page 242. But they all break down into a couple of things. They all have an opening, which sets the stage for the rest of the arc. Involves some sort of action, although it might just be the PC agreeing to do the task or undertake a mission, and that really doesn't have any sort of reward. Then there is like a section which talks about the steps that you will take, what you have to do to move this story forward, or move this arc to its climax. The sort of in-game mechanic with this is, if during a session you take one of those steps, you do something that applies to that step, so you take like an actual step forward there, you gain 2 XP. So if the session, if something happens in the session, you feel like, and you raise your hand and say, this is a step towards my character arc, like what just happened is a step towards it, you gain 2 XP for that. And you keep doing that until you reach the climax of your story, and whatever it is finally resolved. You can have more than one arc at a time, and that's why you can spend an XP to gain another character arc at any point, because you can be juggling 2 or 3 of these at a time, because you'll have more stuff going on. Because these are kind of vague. The arcs go from like aid a friend, avenge, cleanse, creation, develop a bond, finish a great work, join an organization, master a skill, raise a child, repay a debt, solve a mystery, undo a wrong. So you guys can pick any sorts of things. The ones that I felt like were appropriate for, some of the ones appropriate for like what happened at the end of our last game are like restoration, because that's like building yourself up after a fall, which is appropriate for where you guys are all currently at. Being blacklisted. Defeat a foe, because you could label any of the organizations, the corporations or shadow, as a foe, or revenge is another one. But there's all sorts of things, and you guys can really decide like what happened to you over the last year, what is sort of the driving motivation of your character at this point, and pick a character arc that fits with that. And then I would just copy and paste that stuff onto your character sheet, probably at the bottom in your notes section, and keep an eye on it during the game. And then when you take one of the steps that are listed, you'll gain an XP, or gain 2 XP for that. So I'll give you guys a second to read those over. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to pick them right now. You can think on them for a while if you want, but we will you all need to have at least one, or have one for our next session. Does anyone have any questions?
Where can we see the arcs?
Starting on page 242, there's sample character arcs. You can make, if you guys want to, if you don't feel like any of these fit, we can also make your own, following the same sort of format as these. But I think these cover a pretty wide number of scenarios.
Revenge. Catechism is gonna go down. It's happening.
That is fair. Okay, so like for the revenge arc, the opening, vow, you swear revenge, steps, finding a clue, you find a clue to tracking down the culprit. Probably re-flavor that a little bit, as like to make it more appropriate to, because you know who the culprit is.
Yes.
Climax confrontation, you confront the culprit, and resolution, you deal with the aftermath of the confrontation and move on. You think about whether you're satisfied by getting your revenge. So you can redefine the steps if you want to redefine those. But they should be actionable things, kind of mirroring what is there. Is anyone going to pick romance? I just need to
Not for the initial one.
Okay. All right.
Maybe as an additional one.
So I think all 4 of you pick romance.
We all pick
and
romance.
It just turns into
Let's play Good Society.
Yay!
elegant neon.
I'm gonna do recover from trauma. It's recover from a wound or trauma.
Good one. Nice.
Yeah.
Says you need to heal.
Someone-
This isn't just for healing simple damage. It involves recovering from a major debilitating injury, illness, or shock. Severe damage, the loss of a body part, and emotional trauma fall into this. And the opening is rest.
Mhm.
So.
And this one has 4 steps:
Mm-hmm.
self-care, getting aid, medicine, therapy. So are you seeing this as a flavoring of like Choke having lost her arm, or more like something else?
I feel like it's a combination of things. Because we had talked about, like, because not only did she lose her arm and get shot in the noggin, but also, like, I guess her synthetic nerves are busted, and there's some emotional trauma there as well.
I like it.
But I think
Yeah,
she's
it doesn't
in
have to just
pretty-
be one thing.
Yeah, I think it's a sort of a combination of all of those things.
So are we coming into this with Choke being kind of like Logan? Like her powers kind of having waned a little bit, being a little kind of grizzled and broken. I like that.
That's what I think I'm gonna do.
Johnny Cash plays in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I think Clarity is wanting to defeat a foe
Okay.
because she wants to be with her family and she can't. So she wants to take down corporations.
Do you want to flavor that as a shadow, or one of the corporations specifically?
Probably Shadow.
Okay. I think that makes them. I think that makes the most sense because they are the one most directly standing in your way of returning home. I think that also separates it a little bit from what Impulse is doing with revenge for this, because this isn't about revenge. It's not about righting a wrong. It's about getting rid of an obstacle. Impulse is about making somebody suffer.
Well, they're gonna fucking pay.
Yeah, I like that.
But we can help each other in that.
Yeah.
Which will be fun.
Okay, so that's 3. Do you have an idea, GB?
Kind of looking at aid a friend. Just figuring that's kind of what Klaxon generally does.
Yeah.
It just kind of helps out and tries to be there for folks.
So this one's interesting because it's kind of dependent on the other friends. Essentially you pick one of the people's arcs, and you're helping them with that. So, do you think whose do you think makes that you're helping with?
Probably Choke.
Okay.
Like working on the mechanics of it and that kind of thing. I mean, if that's cool with you, Sabby.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Well, especially since Savannah seems like it's going to have more of an emotional element to it of like recovering from this and needing that that's good to have somebody else on the team that is like actively being involved in trying to to
Well,
make that
because
happen.
2 of my steps also require another person help me.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
And as fun as it, like, Swin's there with you guys, but also that's a guest character, and I think it's good to have like another player character that's going to be here to be involved in that. So that's really good. I like that a lot. All right, well, that was easier than I thought it'd be. So you guys all have your 1 arc. You can mark those down on your sheets, and I will also save those for myself so I can make sure I'm giving you ample opportunities to pursue those. But those will be that covers a wide array of things that we will be like pursuing in our initial sessions here, because you guys will have instead of doing these episodic like missions, you guys have these longer term arcs that we are going to be exploring, and more some like long form storytelling that we're going to be doing here, which I think will be a lot of fun.
Where would you like us to put the arcs? I just put mine in the background.
Yeah,
where I put mine,
background.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You're also welcome to make yourself a second sheet for notes. You can do that in the same way you did your first one, where you click the little circle at the top and you can create a new sheet, and there should be a default sheet that you can make that just has notes, and you can make one like that if you want to have something separate from your character sheet. Okay. What's the last thing I want to do here? I'm trying to remember, go back to any rules that we haven't discussed. A lot of this we'll figure out as we play, and we'll talk about like the different mechanics of it. I don't think I want to get too much into how all the rolling works. Does anybody have any mechanics-based questions, I guess, that I can answer? Yes, Savannah.
I was putting in my attacks. There's a table that tells you like how much damage weapons do. It's not in there how much unarmed does.
Unarmed is considered a light attack.
Okay, so it's a light weapon.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Unless you take the no need for weapons ability, which makes it a medium weapon. Yeah. So it's a light attack, and you can use either for an unarmed strike. You can use either dexterity or might, or
Might
sorry,
or speed.
speed or might. Yeah.
Let's versatile. I'll probably remember. Okay. I do a lot of damage.
Nice. Well,
In case you'd like
sort
to
of
know.
your job.
My punches
I
do
do
4.
too. When I shoot a blaster, pew pew.
My punches do 4 damage on their own.
Yeah, that sounds about right. If I throw a thermite grenade, I do 5.
I was just gonna say, blowing people up
I've
is
got-
5.
The ability to do up to 6.
Yeah.
With a big gun.
Uh,
Okay, cool. That was the only thing I hadn't plugged in. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I have something here that says you have an important contact who is in an influential position, such as a minor noble, the captain of the town police, or the head of a large gang of thieves. You and the GM should work out these details together.
We should work out those details together.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Why don't you think on who you want this person to be, and send me a message about it sometime this week, and
Sounds
we'll
good.
we'll talk it through. This will be our first new contact of this campaign. So, trying to think if there's any other questions or mechanics things. Like I said, I have an instinct to be like, oh, I'm going to explain some more about how the game is played, but I think I'm going to wait for more of that to do that next week, because we'll have all forgotten about it.
Ciphers.
Ciphers. Ciphers are they are special items that are one use that you will gain. There's 2 types of ciphers. A subtle cipher, which is essentially like a boon or something that I would give you. Let me pull up the let me just we'll talk about ciphers for a second because I want to use them more in this game. The last time I ran the system, I didn't use them enough, and they're such an integral part that it would be a shame for me to overlook them again. They start on page 377, chapter 24. You can read up about them. It's a little bit complex, but there's two different ways that ciphers are defined. I guess I'll talk about what ciphers are. Ciphers are one-use abilities that characters gain over the course of play. They have cool powers that can heal, make attacks, ease or hinder task rolls, produce effects such as nullifying gravity or turning something invisible. So ciphers are more like there's two ways that they can show up. A subtle cipher, which is sort of conceptual. I'll give you a subtle cipher as sort of they're harder to come up with in this system because we aren't doing like magic. I think something like Choke getting that, like nothing ever came of it because I botched that as a GM, but the genetic splicing thing that we did, that might be more like a subtle cipher because it's not like an object, it's more like a thing that like a blessing or something that I gave you. And they can do different things like healing, giving giving like additional movement, defensive abilities, the ability to fly, things like that. We're going to limit the capabilities within the context of like the setting that we're using. Manifest ciphers are probably what we're going to use more. Those are like physical items that you will find. In this campaign, they will manifest mostly as drugs, computer programs, gadgets, viruses, biological implants, mechanical implants, nanotechnological injections, things like that. There is a table in the book and a whole list of different like abilities that will be tied to these ciphers. They all have a level and some sort of one-use effect that they have. There's like the let's see. There's one like burst of speed. For 1 minute, a user who can normally move a short distance as an action can move a long distance instead. There is density. For the next day, each time the user strikes a solid creature or object with a weapon, the weapon suddenly increases dramatically in weight, causing the blow to inflict 2 additional points of damage. Let's see if there's anything else. I'll have to... A lot of these will probably... I'll have to like narratively flavor for how they work in the setting because a lot of them do have kind of more magical effects, but you will find these on like enemies and looting treasures and things like that during the game, and like I said, they're just one-use powers that you will have access to. So hopefully that answers it enough. I'll introduce a couple in our first session.
And artifacts are separate, right?
Artifacts are separate. They're basically the same as ciphers, except they're not one use. You can keep using them. An artifact is an item that continues to give you some benefit over a longer period of time. Artifacts are pretty much the only time where like having a +1 bonus comes in, where like it might be an item that gives you a +1 to a roll. That's pretty powerful in this game because most of the time you aren't adding anything to rolls. There are some artifacts, or I've seen people essentially create artifacts that do things like that. But they're very powerful. They're not going to come up that often. I don't know if I'll ever introduce something considered an artifact in this game. Okay. Any other questions? So, and if you have anything else come up, let me know. The only other thing I'll mention, like I said before about intrusions, you guys can do intrusions too, like I said, by spending 1 XP to do a player intrusion. That's what you have that list for at the very beginning. You add those to your sheet. Those are your player intrusions. You can spend an XP to do those. You can do other things too, but those are the ones that are kind of more specifically tied to your type. I have ultimate say about whether or not it makes sense, but I'm more than likely going to say yes, unless it is just completely nonsensical that this thing would happen. You can also gain XP, the one additional way that I have on my list I wanted to talk about, by introducing a complication. There's a whole list that I'm not going to go over right now. It starts on page 234, but you can essentially introduce narrative complications of varying degrees as a player under your own merits to gain an XP advance. You introduce a very... you tell me, like, you want this to happen, like a hit squad shows up to find you, or they've learned your location, or something malfunctions, something like that, and I give you XP for that. So you guys really are in charge of your own like advancement and gaining experience for this game. Okay, that's all that I had. We're going to talk about what I had briefly had on my list about talking about what happened during the year, but we're running a little low on time, and I don't know if this is... I don't know if anyone had any ideas or this is the right time to talk about it, or if people want to think about it more over the next week, about where the starting point is. Basically, I just want like to set the scene here is that we're starting on this lunar station, on this lunar orbiter station, New London. You have spent the last year in hiding, essentially. Minimal contact with the people that you had back on the people that you knew back in San Angeles, with the exception being, I think like Swin has obviously come with you. Ghost has probably been able to come back and forth due to their position and connections. Minimal contact with anyone else that you have as a contact so far. We're probably going to be introducing mostly new contacts. I really encourage you guys to use their XP to create new contacts or declare contacts if you want to.
I actually have an intrusion for that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. It's called Old Friend.
Okay.
It's cool. A comrade in arms from your past shows up unexpectedly and provides aid in whatever you're doing. They're on a mission of their own and can't stay longer than it takes to help out. Chat for a while after and perhaps share a quick meal.
Awesome.
I think it's fun.
That's dope.
But I would just like all of you guys to kind of think about that. Does anyone have any like immediate thoughts about like, oh, this is like my burning thing of like, this is what I definitely think they've been up to in the last year? Or is everybody just kind of still figuring it out?
So,
I mean, Choke's been in recovery,
Yeah.
I think, for the most part.
I mean, we kind of had to get settled
Yeah.
because we did like kind of take out the person that technically was helping us get here. So that is probably pretty important.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys are... I would say you've had your run-ins probably with bounty hunters and other mercenaries that have been sent to take care of you. A lot of attention... your contacts have diverted as much attention away from you as possible, but that is an ongoing threat that we're going to be dealing with right now in this station. Yes.
Do we get to figure out where we live again, like we did with the shop?
Mm-hmm. And we can
Nice
kind
thought
of...
about
I'll probably dedicate... So well, here's what I'll recommend, so we can wrap up here in a second, is that take the next week to think about it. Consider the options and kind of who you've been connected with, also integrating like your story arc and or your character arc and stuff into that, how you've got to this point over the last year. Will probably take about 15-20 minutes at the beginning of the next session for me to get some like exposition from you guys on that, and I'll kind of hit you all with small little scenes to see what is going on and where everybody is. We can talk in the chat over the week, and yeah, and that's where we'll start next time and start introducing new drama and new complications, and see whatever stuff we get up to in space. Cool. I don't really have anything else. Any parting thoughts?
Before we go, where do we live?
I enjoy the house hunting time note that sprung up over in the thing.
Posted house hunting time.
So I guess I would ask, what is the scope of the moon lunar orbital station?
So it functions as a relay for deep space exploration and colonization. So there are some small colonies and mining operations and outposts that are spread through some like nearby moons and planets and near Earth. So Mars probably mostly, and some small like asteroid farming and things like that. So it's a fairly large station because pretty much everything that is leaving Earth passes through here, and everything that's coming back to Earth passes through here. So we're talking like millions of people living in this station. It is a mega city in and of itself.
So is there all the major corps as well have some major influence in the station? Yeah. Is there one corp in particular that has more influence, or?
Well, that's a good question. Are you guys more interested in, because I gave a couple of options, because we did tease last time about like there being other corporations, is that it sounds based on where we're going is that we want some of the same corporations to be here so we can continue to like
murder them.
Antagonists. Yeah.
Yes.
I would assume everybody would be very disappointed if Idis wasn't here. Be very disappointed if Catechism was not present. I can, as far as some of the other corporations that we didn't have as much experience with, we can create some new ones. I can keep all the same ones. Add in. Do you guys interested in seeing new players, or do you guys want to keep some of the old standbys to continue to explore?
It might be interesting if one corporation like owned the place, and hence the other corporations were trying to get in, Mm-hmm. So like whatever, lunar tech, blah blah blah, the space guys, they owned the place, but then the other corporations were laying footholds trying to get on board or something.
Which would make sense why we could get away with living here for a year when the 4 of the major players are after us. So
I like that. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, there's one new player that is the leading faction here, and then you have smaller influences from the corporations that you are familiar with.
We need a space name. A space name for this major corp. Space name.
Whispering it like that always helps.
I know. It helps my name. Space Corporation Name Generator. Mm-hmm. Look at that.
Unbound Horizons.
There's something that I'm trying to parse out right now.
What's that?
Hold on.
Chat says Alpha Beta Centauri. Not bad. Not bad, chat.
Always call it Prometheus. That's never
Always
been bad for anybody.
Always good.
I was trying to think of something moon related. Because I did like...
Let's see. Lunatech.
Ooh.
Slightly close to lunatic. Cynic
good.
Aerospace. This sci-fi name generator. Chat goes further. Formerly Alphabet, the company that owns Google. Not bad.
That is pretty good. I do like Lunatech.
Yeah, I do too.
The more I think about it.
So Luna capital Tech.
Yeah. Lunatech. I do like that. Yeah, let's go with Lunatech.
Ew.
Corp that owns Moon.
The whole moon?
Corp that owns Moon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they own the moon. They've been mining it. So there's probably some outposts and stuff. We'll get some moon fighting probably at some point. Some moon missions.
Bye.
All right, cool. That solves that and gives us some place to start here. Awesome. Anything else from you guys? Excited to play some Cypher?
Yeah.
Characters?
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone's characters ended up the way they wanted and we got some good conversions here. If there's anything that comes up over the next week, you guys have any thoughts on that or want to switch anything out, you are free to. Just let me know. We can talk about it. And yeah, I think that's where we're going and call it for today, guys. Let's see if there's nothing else. So yeah, thank you everyone in the chat for hanging out. And thanks to my lovely players for being here and cooperating and being very thorough in your character creation.
No, we were going to undermine you at every turn, Val. That was the goal.
Yeah, I know it's usually the goal. We will be back in 1 week for session 1 of the new Neon Souls Season 2 in space. You can join us in the meantime tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll have the next installment of Saturday Night's Apocalypse. We're playing the Pincers of the Apocalypse campaign setting loosely at, as I said, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Rest of our schedule is below our faces. If you're watching us live on Twitch, if you're watching us on YouTube, head over to our Twitch page and you can see whatever we've got going on at this point in the future. Anyone have anything they want to plug or promote before we stop? All right. Once again, thank you to all my lovely players. I will see everyone out there in the chat next week. And until next time, good game and good night, Internet.